Lee and Kenny walked back to the motor inn to see that the wall had a new arrow shafts and bullet holes in it. There were also a couple of dead bandits outside of the motor inn. They walked into the motor inn and were greeted by Bud. "Hey, I hope you guys brought back something good. We've got the RV loaded. Now we just need to get out of here," Bud said. "Good, I say we leave now," Kenny said. "I wanted to leave tomorrow morning, but those a-holes out there aren't letting it up with those things." "Hey, stop loading the RV," Lily snapped. The man looked over to see Lily approaching someone who must have been loading the supplies into the RV. Bud, Lee, and Kenny walked over to see Lily take a bag of supplies from Wyatt and toss it aside. "You will not load this RV, understand?" Lily snapped. "Lily, enough," Bud said. "You're not the boss of me," Lily hissed at Bud. "I'm in charge of the group," Bud exclaimed. "Well, you shouldn't be. After what you and Kenny did to my dad, you should be fucking dead," Lily snapped. "I made the best call I could make it at that time," Bud said. "I'm sorry for what happened to him, but we had no other choice." "Fuck you. You didn't even give him a chance," Lily snapped. She shoved Bud out of the way and went to her room. It was followed by the door slamming shut. "She'll get over it," Kenny muttered, while he walked over to sit next to Katja. Wyatt walked over and picked up the supplies. "This is the last of it," Wyatt said. "We're ready to leave." He turned to the RV and placed the supplies inside. Bud huffed and said, "Everything's come to a head. Some leader I turn out to be. Doug, Mark, and Larry are dead, and Glenn and Justin are who knows where." "Bud, you stepped up and became the leader for everyone, and looked around you. Look who's alive and breathing, under our circumstances. I don't think anyone could have done it any better," Lee said. Bud smiled and said, "Thanks, Lee. His smile turned to a frown. "I just don't like making the right decisions at times." "Bud, you have to tell me what happened at the St. John's," Lee said. Bud shook his head and said, "I can't, Lee. You have to. I'm worried, Bud. You might have been the same since the St. John's," Lee said. Bud sighed and said, "All right, come on, I'll tell you in private." Lee nodded and followed to Bud into his room. He hadn't been into Bud's room for a while. It was an organized mess. There were several notebooks everywhere. "Looks like you've been that busy," Lee said. "That's right," Bud said. "I've been keep track of everything. People we met, supply count, people we lost. People are going back to wonder what happened when the human race had a temporarily drastic decline," Bud said. "You think this will be over someday?" Lee asked. "I don't know. I know this virus started out strong, but it's using corpses as vessel. Sooner or later, these corpses will wither away into nothing," Bud said. "I guess you got a point," Lee said. "Anyway, to answer your question, a lot happened. The St. John's seemed nice at first, but turned out to be more and more apparent as they were hiding something. It started when I went to do some chores at the barn. Andy stopped me immediately. Next part is so fucked up. Danny and I went to this camp to attack the bandits, one of the same ones that attacked Mark. Well, we all found it was a mentally unstable woman. When I checked the tent, I found a picture of a young girl. It was Danielle. It was her mother. I tried to talk her down, but then Danny shot her." "Holy shit. Poor kid. She really doesn't have anyone now," Lee said. "Yeah, I had to tell Vince the other day so he could break the news to her," Bud said with a frown. "I guess she didn't take it well," Lee said. "Not at all. Poor kid. It only got worse from there. I found out about this room in the back of the barn. It had blood everywhere. Andy found me and I lied to him. I told him that I found it open. He seemed alright with it. Said something about his brother probably leaving it open. We went to have dinner. I came up with an excuse. I went upstairs and that's when I found Mark. After that, they dragged us into a meat cooler. Larry had a heart attack and well, I did what I had to in order to survive. I'm not proud of it, but if I had helped Lily, we would have all died." "What did you do?" Lee asked. "I pulled Lily back so Kenny could drop the salt lick on Larry's head," Bud said. Lee's eyes widened before he nodded his head. "I'm sorry you had to do that," Lee said. Yeah, well, Bud said with a huff. I think I just needed some time to clear my mind, Lee. How about you go check on Clementine? She missed you while you left this afternoon, Bud said. Okay, well, you know where I'll be, Lee said. He got up and walked out of the room. He felt bad for Bud, but he knew Clementine was probably eager to see him. Lee! Clementine exclaimed when she got up and ran up to him. She was wearing a hooded t-shirt with her dress and tights to stay warmer. Lee chuckled before he bent down and picked her up. Hey there, you missed me, didn't ya? Lee said. Yeah, I made a drawing. You want to see? Clementine asked. Sure, baby, Lee said. He placed her on the ground and went over to the play area where the drawing was. Lee sat down and the toddler showed him in the drawing. Wow, Clem, good job, Lee said. Thanks, Clementine said. She frowned and then asked, Where did we go? Lee knew what she meant. We're going to try and find somewhere safer to live, Lee said. Here is not safe? Clementine asked. I'm afraid not, honey. It's not safe anymore. Bad people kept attacking us, Lee said. Yeah, they come today. It's scary, Clementine said. It's okay, hun. They won't hurt you. I'll make sure they won't, Lee said. Clementine smiled and she said, That's good. 1 hour later, Lee had been watching and playing with Clementine as she colored and drew. It was nice to relax with her with a very difficult run. Why? Vince said. Lee looked up to see Vince questioning a stare before followed the line of his vision. He turned around to see Wyatt go into Bud's room. He was holding a brown paper bag in his hands. What was that all about? Lee asked as he got up. He was wondering if Bud was all right and Wyatt was doing. However, Lee stopped when he heard a new voice. Don't move, asshole, a man said. Lee looked over and his eyes widened. The dumpsters rolled away and several people entered the motor inn. They were all bandits. Lee raised his hand and looked over to see who was on watch. Ben, Lee said with a growl in his voice. I didn't see them, okay? 1 minute there was nothing. Next minute they're here, Ben exclaimed. Shut up and get your asses over here, the supposed leader snapped. Lee huffed before he walked over to where the bandits are. They had already captured Kenny, Duck, and Katja. Hands over your head and on your knees now, the bandit said. The group had no choice but to oblige. Both toddlers were afraid, but they didn't cry. Something must have told them not to. Otherwise, the bandits would focus on them. You don't fucking steal from us, the bandit leader shouted. He must have been trying to get the attention of the rest of the group to show them the seriousness of the situation. Meanwhile, Carly walked over and was forced into the same position. You assholes fucking with the wrong people. And now we're going to take everything that you have. I've had enough of this bullshit. Drew, start putting your foot onto these doors. Yeah, a bandit said. Lee looked over to see Wyatt approach the group with his hands up. Hold it, asshole, the bandit leader said as he aimed his gun at Wyatt. Easy, man. No need to get violent here, Wyatt said. What do you want? We want free times as much as you've been giving us, the bandit leader said. Fine, whatever. You got a deal, Wyatt said. The bandit lowered his gun. Well, I suppose we have to hash up some terms. I don't like no hash, one of the bandits said. Man, shut up all, the bandit leader said. However, he was suddenly shot in the head. Shit, one of the bandits said, exclaimed before he was shot by the same sniper. Move, Wyatt exclaimed. Lee picked up Clementine and he ran to the RV, Vince alongside with him and Danielle in his arms. Both girls were whimpering in the fear of gunshots whirled, but it was if the bandits hadn't organized an army attack the motor inn. Lee reached behind the RV and took cover. He then looked up to see Bud reloading his rifle. He must have been the sniper that killed the two bandits that were holding the group hostage. Why? Vince exclaimed as the stocky man took cover behind the couch where Ben and Carly were. They were pinned down. We're going to have to help, Lee said. Yeah, Vince said. He and Lee went to the RV, put the two toddlers at the table at the very back. Listen, Vince and I need to go out there and help everyone. We'll be back, Lee said. No, no, no! It's too scary! Clementine whimpered. Just be strong for a few minutes. That's all we're asking, Vince said. He stood up and left the RV, with Lee following close behind. Upon exiting the RV, both men got out their guns and went to the opposite sides of the RV. They would have to wait for the bandits to get close enough since their handguns didn't work. So from far away, Lee fired a shot which killed the closest bandit. "Shit!" the bandit from behind exclaimed. He tried to retreat back to cover, but Lee shot him. The last bandit took over some furniture and fired at Lee. Lee used the RV as cover, and Vince walked over and said, "Carly, Ben, why? We're safe." "Hey," Vince said. "Good, I'm having trouble with this one," Lee said. Vince nodded and aimed his gun, attacking the bandit. Both men waited for the bandit to pop his head again. The moment came when they fired a couple of shots into the bandit. "All right, hurry, come on," Vince said. Lee fired a shot at a nearby walker that was getting too close to Katja and Duck. They got inside the RV with Lee and Vince as well. "How's it coming along?" Lee asked. "Working on it," Kenny said. "We'll work faster. We don't have a lot of time," Lily said. "Ah, shit," Kenny muttered. "We got walkers." "Y and I will handle it," Carly said. She and Y went outside while Lee and Vince walked over to Danielle and Clementine. Both girls had their arms up to be held. "I'm sorry you had to see that," Lee said, as he picked up Clementine and cradled her in his arms. "It's scary," Clementine said. "I know. I need you to be a big girl from now on. Can you do that?" Lee asked. "I try," Clementine said. "It's okay, honey. We're going to get out of this," Lee said. He looked over to some bags until he found Clementine's. He got a pacifier and placed it in her mouth. He then walked over to Vince and Danielle. The toddler was already back with scribbling with a crayon. She calmed down pretty quickly, Lee said. "Yeah, I guess she didn't want to be alone," Vince said. Lee placed Clementine on his lap and got out a coloring book for her. Vince had the two share the crayons as the gunfire continued from outside. Soon enough, the RV started up. Carly and Wyatt ran into the van RV, while Lee was starting to worry. He wasn't sure if Bud was going to make it inside. Finally, Bud ran inside the RV, dove across the parking lot. There were several bumps, which was followed by a loud crash. Lee released a sigh before he kissed Clementine on the top of the head. "I'm glad you're safe," Lee said to the toddler. "Me too," Clementine said under the pacifier. "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit," Ben muttered. He looked up and said, "I'm sorry." "It's fine, Ben. Everything's fine," Carly said. "Everything is not fine. We just lost everything," Lily said. "No, we didn't. We got a lot of supplies in the RV," Bud said. "We're lucky to have this RV," Kenny said. "And nobody died. Let's just be thankful for that. No one got hurt," Carly said. Bud frowned and said, "Unfortunately, someone was working with them." "What?" Lily hissed. "What are you talking about?" Kenny asked. "That's nuts." "It's not. I found a bag of supplies outside the wall," Wyatt said. "Look, this isn't easy. Someone's going to have to put up a fuss about it," Bud said. "And what's going to happen to the person who did it?" Carly asked, with the glare aimed at Bud. "I won't have a choice but to send them on their way. We can't take risks," Bud said. Carly looked at Bud with wide eyes. She seemed almost afraid of him. "So, Carly, do you have anything you want to say?" Lily asked. "What?" Carly inquired. "We have to get it out of you then," Lily said. "Now hold on, you're just pointing fingers," Carly exclaimed. "I didn't just come up with this. I've had my suspicions," Lily said. "Carly's been with us since the very beginning. I know it wasn't her," Bud said. "Shut up," Lily hissed at Bud. "3 people are dead, 2 left, and now we lost our home. You're a horrible leader. Now it's my turn to take over." "No one wants you as leader," Bud said. "I don't care. This isn't about wanting anymore. It's about needing," Lily said. "Let's just calm down," Lee said. Lily ignored them and glared at Ben and Carly. "Was it both of you? I've seen you 2 work together." "Was it both of you?" Lily exclaimed. "Lily, enough of this," Bud said. "Shit!" Kenny exclaimed as the RV shocked and rocked. "What's happening up there?" Lily asked. "I hit something. We got it pulled over," Kenny said. "Well, we could settle this now then," Lily said. "This needs to stop. This isn't working," Bud exclaimed. "Shut up. You had your chance to lead and you fell apart," Lily snapped. Lee then looked down and noticed that Clementine and Danielle were no longer drawing or coloring. Instead, they were looking at the group. A few minutes later, the RV rolled to a stop. "Ken, is it safe?" Bud asked. "Should be," Kenny said. "Everybody, out," Lily said. She turned to push Bud out of the way. The group started to go outside. Lee shook his head. He would have to stay. He just hoped that Bud could defuse the situation. However, it didn't seem like he was having that much of success. Lee looked down at Clementine and he said, "Can you draw me a pretty flower?" Clementine nodded her head in response. However, Lee could tell that she was fighting off sleep. It's pretty dark out there. We should see if they can fall asleep, Vince said. Yeah, Lee said. He pulled back Clementine and started to wrap her in a blanket. Me play, Clementine said underneath her pacifier. You will in a few hours. It's time to sleep now, Lee said. Suddenly there was a loud gunshot from outside, the toddler upright from the surprising gunshot. Kenny, what's happening? Katja exclaimed. Keep duck away from the windows. Holy shit, Kenny exclaimed from outside. Get in, we're leaving this crazy, Kenny said but trailed off. Bud, hold on now, Bud, Kenny exclaimed. It was followed by another gunshot.